Brought to you by...
Returning home for the holidays often comes with its burdens. As adults growing into and exploring the world, we venture off not only to discover ourselves or what we want out of life, but to distance ourselves from what we have always known and leave the traumas that we grew up with behind. Revisiting family during the holiday season can be like stepping back into that trauma, as you are forced to face the very things that you have been running away from. Toxic relationships with certain family members, seemingly innocuous comments that cause us mental or emotional strain, sometimes even the reminders of mental illness that family members might have but do not acknowledge. Today's pick delves into an extreme circumstance of these ideas, dragging us back to face horrors beyond fathoming head on. Happy holidays, friends, and welcome back to ETF. I Trapped the Devil is a 2019 psychological horror film written and directed by Josh Lobo. The film stands out as a unique entry into the genre, blending the holiday cheer of Christmas with the eerie discomfort of a slow-burn horror narrative. The film's strength lies in its atmosphere, tension, and the way it explores themes of paranoia, guilt, and the fear of the unknown. The story revolves around Matt and his wife Karen, who unexpectedly visit Matt's estranged brother Steve on Christmas Eve. What starts as a seemingly normal visit quickly turns sinister when Steve reveals that he has trapped someone in his basement, claiming that the man is the devil. The film then unfolds as a tense psychological drama, with Matt and Karen grappling with whether to believe Steve or to view his actions as the result of a disturbed mind. This production reflects the independent nature of the film, marked by a minimalist approach that emphasizes atmosphere, character development, and psychological tension over special effects or high-budget elements. The film was written and directed by Josh Lobo, making his feature film debut with this one. Lobo drew inspiration from various sources, including classic horror films that focus on psychological tension, the works of David Lynch, John Carpenter, and themes of paranoia and fear of the unknown. Lobo was particularly interested in exploring how fear can distort perception and lead to catastrophic decisions. The idea of blending a Christmas setting with a horror narrative was integral to the film's development. The juxtaposition of the festive holiday season with the unsettling promise of someone potentially trapping the devil in their basement added a layer of irony and subversion to the story. The film was shot on a modest budget, primarily in a single location, a house in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The choice of this single location not only helped keep production costs down, but also reinforced the film's themes of isolation and entrapment. The house itself becomes a character in the story, with its dark, narrow hallways and cluttered rooms adding to the sense of unease. Set design was crucial in creating the film's oppressive atmosphere. The production team filled the house with old furniture, Christmas decorations, and other details that contribute to the film's unsettling mood. The Christmas lights and decorations are particularly important, serving as a visual counterpoint to the dark themes of the story. Cinematographer Bryce Holden worked closely with Lobo to craft the film's visual style. The cinematography emphasizes shadows, tight framing, and long takes, all of which contribute to the feeling of claustrophobia and paranoia. The use of dim lighting and a dark color palette enhances the sense of dread, making the house feel both familiar and threatening. Holden and Lobo also used practical effects and in-camera techniques to create tension, rather than relying on anything digital. This decision helped maintain the film's grounded and gritty aesthetic, making the horror feel more immediate and real. The sound design plays a vital role in building the film's atmosphere, with much of the film's tension coming from what is unseen or unheard. The sound design focuses on ambient noises, the creaking of the house, the hum of electronics, and the distant, muffled sounds from the basement. This minimalist approach reinforces the film's themes of paranoia and fear. The score, composed by Ben Lovett, is sparse but effective, using low rumbling tones and dissonant chords to create a sense of unease. Lovett's music complements the sound design, amplifying the tension without overwhelming the quieter moments of the film. The restraint shown in the score mirrors the overall minimalist approach of the film's production. As with many independent films, this one faced challenges related to its limited budget. The production team had to be creative in their use of resources, making the most out of a single location and a very small cast. The film's slow pace and emphasis on atmosphere over action were both creative choices and practical necessities, as they allowed the filmmakers to stretch their limited resources while still delivering a compelling narrative. The tight shooting schedule also required the cast and crew to work efficiently. The intimacy of the production allowed for close collaboration between Lobo, the actors, and the technical crew, resulting in a cohesive vision that is evident in the final film. One of the most striking aspects of this one is its atmosphere. The film makes excellent use of its limited setting, a single claustrophobic house. The tight, dimly lit spaces create a sense of entrapment and paranoia, echoing the mental health of the characters. The central theme of the film is the nature of evil, and the psychological toll of guilt and paranoia. Steve's belief that he has trapped the devil is never fully confirmed, leaving the audience in a state of ambiguity. This uncertainty mirrors the character's internal struggles, particularly Steve's. His guilt, whether over a past event or his current actions, manifests in his obsessive need to believe that he has captured the source of evil. The film cleverly plays with the idea that the true horror must not be the entity in the basement, but rather the darkness within the characters themselves. This is not just a horror film. It's a deep psychological study of fear, guilt, and the dark recesses of the human mind. The movie presents a tightly wound narrative that uses its characters' mental states and relationships to build an intense atmosphere of dread and uncertainty. Steve, portrayed by Scott Poythress, is the most complex character in the film, and his mental state is central to the story's psychological tension. At the film's onset, Steve appears deeply paranoid, isolated in his house and convinced that he has trapped evil in his basement. From a psychological perspective, Steve's behavior can be seen as a manifestation of extreme guilt or unresolved trauma. Steve's paranoia could be a defense mechanism, a way for him to cope with something terrible he believes that he has done or experienced. By externalizing his fear and guilt onto an external entity, i.e. the devil, he avoids confronting whatever is truly haunting him. This displacement allows Steve to channel his anxiety into a tangible form, giving him a sense of control, albeit a twisted one. His insistence that the figure in the basement is the devil can be interpreted as his desperate attempt to make sense of his fears, to give his suffering a reason or cause. Steve's self-imposed isolation exacerbates his mental deterioration. Cut off from the outside world and surrounded by only his thoughts, he spirals deeper into his paranoia. The house, dark and cluttered, becomes a physical representation of his mind, full of shadows, memories, and unresolved fears. His oppressive behavior, such as monitoring the basement door and refusing to leave the house, indicates a profound disconnection from reality. He is trapped in his own mind, just as he believes he has trapped the devil. A.J. Bowen's character, Matt, represents the rational, grounded viewpoint, very much in contrast to Steve's paranoia. However, Matt is also burdened by his past relationship with Steve, which complicates his ability to assess the situation objectively. Initially, Matt approaches the situation with skepticism. He tries to reason with Steve, urging him to see the irrationality of his actions. From a psychological standpoint, Matt's response is a classic example of cognitive dissonance. He struggles to reconcile the brother he once knew with the disturbed person in front of him. Conflict between rationality and family loyalty creates tension in Matt's character. As the story progresses, this tension forces Matt to confront his own fears and doubts. The strained relationship between Matt and Steve suggests a history of unresolved issues. Matt's reluctance to fully confront Steve could indicate underlying guilt or regret. Perhaps he feels responsible for Steve's mental state or is burdened by a sense of failure as a brother. This emotional baggage affects his decision-making, making him more susceptible to the growing fear and uncertainty in the house. Karen, played by Susan Burke, serves as an audience surrogate, a voice of reason trying to navigate the increasingly bizarre situation. Her role is crucial in grounding the film's psychological exploration, as she represents the outsider's perspective on the escalating tension between the brothers. Karen's initial reaction to Steve's claims is one of disbelief. Her skepticism is not just a rational response, but also a psychological barrier against the fear that begins to permeate this house. However, as she witnesses the tension between Matt and Steve, her compassion starts to conflict with her skepticism. She becomes more invested in understanding what drove Steve to this point, which in turn makes her more vulnerable to the psychological horrors at play. As the film progresses, Karen's steadfast rationality begins to erode under the weight of this unresolved mystery. The uncertainty of the situation, whether Steve is delusional or if there is something indeed supernatural at play, takes a psychological toll on her. She becomes caught between wanting to protect her husband, Matt, and the growing suspicion that there might be some truth to Steve's fears. The internal conflict heightens the tension and leads her to make decisions that further complicate the situation. Fear is the driving force behind the character's actions and decisions. Each character's response to fear reveals different aspects of their psychology and contributes to the escalating tension. For Steve, the act of trapping the supposed devil is an attempt to exert control over his life. His paranoia and guilt have made him feel powerless, and by capturing what he believes to be the embodiment of evil, he gains a sense of agency. However, this need for control is also his undoing, as it isolates him from reality for those who care about him. Matt and Karen's fear stems from the unknown. They are unsure if Steve's claims are a result of mental illness or if something more sinister is going on. This uncertainty creates a psychological dilemma. Do they trust Steve and risk falling into his delusion, or do they reject his claims and possibly ignore a much more horrifying threat? This fear of the unknown is a common psychological stressor, leading to anxiety and indecision. The relationships between the characters evolve significantly over the course of the film, shaped by the escalating psychological tension. The relationship between Matt and Steve is marked by underlying tension, likely stemming from their past. As the situation in the house becomes more dire, their sibling rivalry gives way to a shared desperation. Matt's initial skepticism turns into a desperate need to understand and help his brother, while Steve's paranoia forces him to reach out to Matt, despite his fear of being misunderstood. This evolution shows how extreme situations can strip away superficial conflicts and reveal deeper emotional connections. The crisis in the house tests Matt and Karen's relationship, particularly their trust in each other. Karen's role as the rational outsider puts her in conflict with Matt, who is torn between his loyalty to his brother and his need to protect his wife. As fear and uncertainty grow, cracks begin to appear in their relationship. Karen's doubts about Steve's mental state and Matt's increasing involvement in the situation create tension between them. This strain reflects how fear and external pressure can challenge even the strongest relationships, pushing them to the brink of tearing apart. The film's ambiguous ending is the culmination of its psychological exploration. By leaving the nature of the trapped figure unresolved, the film forces the audience to grapple with the same uncertainty that plagues the characters. This ambiguity serves to highlight the film's central psychological themes: fear, guilt, and the search for meaning in a chaotic world. This unresolved ending invites the audience to question the nature of evil. Is the real horror the possibility that the devil is trapped in the basement, or is it the darkness within Steve's mind? This duality speaks to a psychological truth. Often, the fear of external threats is less terrifying than the realization of internal demons we carry with us. The film's open-ended conclusion leaves a lasting psychological impact on the audience. By refusing to provide clear answers, it mimics the experience of the characters, who are left to question their own sanity and judgment. This unresolved tension lingers long after the credits end. This unresolved tension is one we will carry with us, encouraging viewers to reflect on the nature of fear and the human mind's capacity to create its own horrors. I Trapped the Devil is a rich psychological horror film that delves into the minds of its characters, exploring how fear, guilt, and unresolved trauma can distort reality around us. The film's focus on character development and the evolution of relationships under extreme pressure provides a compelling study of how the human psyche responds to the unknown. Through its slow burn tension, minimalistic setting, and ambiguous narrative, the film creates a haunting atmosphere that resonates on a psychological level, making it a highly thought-provoking entry into the genre. Well, friends, that's gonna be all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please, I urge you to check this film out for yourself. I have put a link down in the description for where you can get yourself a copy. If you like what we're doing here and you want to help support this channel, give this video a like, subscribe if you aren't already, and find us on Patreon. Every little bit helps this channel grow and gets us closer to that goal of being able to make these videos for you full time. Until next time, stay safe, have a happy holiday, don't keep the devil in your basement, and thank you for watching.